Well, we're here at Paragraphs on Padre, and I'm talking with Griff about a interesting character from Padre Island that he heard about first in Sodas Point, New York.
Absolutely. Well, it was 2 years ago now. I was going to go fishing with a friend of mine, Captain Steve Leroy, and the weather was too rough, about 4:30 in the morning, so we couldn't go out on the water. So we opted to go and have breakfast. And as I was sitting around this breakfast area, there was a local gentleman I'd seen before, even though I'd lived in Sodas Point many years. And I wasn't in his conversation, but I overheard him say, "Boomerang Billy." And so I stopped and I looked over at him, and I said, "There's a character down on Padre Island they call Boomerang Billy." And he looked at me and goes, "That's my brother." And it was Bruce McMahon. And I said, "You gotta be kidding me." He says, "Oh no." And he was going on and telling me stories about John McMahon and what he was doing up on the beaches of Sodas Point as a young man, and gave me quite a background on him. So he also proceeded to tell me he was the executor of his will, and he said, "I've got some boomerangs and some paraphernalia from him." And he went home and we waited, and he came back and he had half a dozen of these boomerangs. This is the one I grabbed. It's got his name on the front of it here, John McMahon. And the date, it's legible still if you know what you're looking at, but South Padre Island, Texas.
This is a classic Billy Boomerang boomerang. He made these during the 1960s and the 70s. He was very well known here on the island, and he would cut squares out of the spools that they used over at the telephone company, and those were his preferred sources for wood, and then he would carve them down, and he'd be down on the beach demonstrating these. And his record was he had 7 of them in the air at one time. He would throw them out, and as it went winging out, he would throw the second one, then the third one, the fourth one, and by the time he was ready to throw the 5th one, the first one was coming back, and he would catch it, throw the 6th one, and catch the next one and throw the 7th one. And that was his record, was 7 of them in the air at one time.
Oh, that's...
And he would sell these boomerangs on the beach for as little as $5 a piece, right on up. He had some really fancy ones that would sell for almost as much as $20. But this is one of his classic boomerangs, very collectible. If you were at the Antiques Roadshow, they would look at this and say, "Oh, yes, I would put a price of about $50 on this."
Oh, that'd be, and I'd have that expression on my face. Yes. Really?
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, Sodas Point, that's in New York?
Yes, upstate New York. It's on the shore of Sodas Bay.
It's very interesting.
Right there. And the other thing Bruce told me was one clever story. I think John was his older brother, and he was playing on the beaches, and I understand he had a reputation here to be with the ladies and quite a physique on the beach, you know, well built and all that other stuff. Well, he did the same thing in Sodas Point. And one day, unbeknown to him, his brother went out early one day, and on one of those monkey bars where you go hand over hand, he put a little Crisco fat on it one day, and then stood a little bit further away because he says, "John can run faster than I can." And when John goes out on the beach and he made this big, whatever he did to get the attention of all the girls, and leapt up on there to show him his biceps, slipped right off into the ground.
Oh boy.
And Bruce just started laughing, and he said he got up and he said, I got home before he did and got inside to lock the door, but it was quite a show, and people tell me that he was quite well known with the women around here. And
he had a really good physique. He was a bodybuilder. He was one of the early health nuts. He didn't drink. There's a place on the island called Boomerang Billy's, and of course he didn't own the name Boomerang Billy. That's a name that's been around for hundreds of years, but he was our Billy Boomerang here on the island.
Well, that's good.
He was also a man who predicted hurricanes, and he would take the weather readings for the National Weather Service. He would take the tide charts and read them and send the information into them.
Wow.
And, yeah, he had quite a reputation. I have in my collection, I have probably 4 or 5 different photographs of him with various women who have autographed their photographs to him. Oddly though, he stayed single. He had a love in his life early, and it didn't work out. And he hit the road and ended up down here on South Padre Island, and to the best of my knowledge, he didn't have a lady friend down here.
Well, That's another side to him I didn't know.
Well, thank you.
Well,
If you read my book, Old Indio, Last of the Karankawa Indians, and other short stories of Padre Island, you'll read about Billy Boomerang.